And to the Valley. Talks to buy back the stadium have been going on in the West End all afternoon, and I understand a deal is imminent. The Charlton Vice Chairman Michael Norris and Director Roger Alwyn have been negotiating with former Chairman Michael Glickstein, who owns most of the land. The money involved is still unclear, but the idea is that Charlton leaves Selhurst Park and go home as soon as practical. When Charlton open their doors to football again in Floyd Road SE7, what they'll see is not so much a valley, more a forest. The club's traditional home since 1924 is today sadly derelict. Stands that were once full of cheering supporters are now strewn with litter, broken and overgrown. It's 2.5 years since they last played a game of football here at the Valley. Since then, the weather, time itself of course, and vandals have been particularly cruel to this famous old ground. Right now, I'm walking through the centre circle of the pitch, would you believe? Today, the Valley is hardly recognisable from the great old stadium it used to be. One of the reasons the club left was the cost of bringing the huge open side of the ground up to the required safety standard. Today's estimate of repair is said to be well over £1 million. Charlton began their ground sharing scheme with Crystal Palace in October 1985 and agreed a 7-year lease. That too will have to be paid up if they return. And just 3 months ago, Charlton estimated their debt to Sunleys, their parent company, at around £2 million. Going home is going to prove hugely costly, as well as marvellous news for the fans.
Basically, every Charlton match has been away from home for the last 2.5 years, and the team has done very well to survive in Division 1 under those pressures. But for the Charlton fans, it's been awful having to get across London, maybe 10, 12 miles every Saturday. Well, Kerry Dixon is tonight deciding whether or not to go ahead with a £1 million move to West Ham. Athletic home to the Valley are back on ice tonight. As expected, Charlton's Vice Chairman Michael Norris has bought the 10-acre ground in Floyd Road with the financial backing of Lang Homes for around £2 million. But Greenwich Council will have the final say in what happens next, prefer Charlton to build a new home in the borough. They've earmarked the Blackwall Peninsula. Greenwich leader Dave Picton says this site is ideal for a new community development which could happily include the football team. He doesn't think partial redevelopment of the Valley and a smaller football ground there to be as beneficial to the borough. If the rest of the council agree with him, the famous old ground has seen its last ever game. With the new 25,000 capacity stadium. For the past 4 years, the Valley has looked grim rather than green. The famous old terrace is overgrown, the pitch more like a jungle. Today, it's got the look of a football ground again. Charlton will become the first club to build in the lessons learned from the disasters of Ibrox, Bradford and Hillsborough. Their purpose-built stadium should become a blueprint for soccer in the 21st century. And they've taken the advice of the government's Department of Enterprise for the best ways of marketing the club to secure its future.
Well, we're starting from scratch, and unlike other people who've got Victorian edifices that they're stuck with and everything has to be worked around that, Charlton can now create a situation where the supporters are well looked after, where the business fraternity are looked after, because sponsorship is an integral part of the game in attracting the money to bring the players that earns the success, that attracts the supporters, and somewhere there's a nice balance within football, and I suspect that Charlton are going to find it.
It'll cost Charlton around £5 million to build the new Valley, ready for March 1990. Probably all-seater, it'll accommodate 20,000, and the area behind the old main stand will be developed for housing, subject to planning permission. That was the deal Chairman Roger Alwyn struck with Langs the Builders when he bought back the Valley's 10 acres a year ago for £2.5 million.
Oh, I'm sure football, we're watching every move. What are the criteria then in order to build a safety-first stadium?
I think we've got to provide facilities for the fans, obviously where they're safe, and I think all-seater stadiums are the answer.
The last game played here was in September '85. Today, John Humphrey, one of only 3 of the current Charlton team who've actually played at the Valley, kicked the first ball of the new era.
This is our home, this is Charlton's home. The fans know that, the players know that, and we're just, delighted to come back here.
Charlton expect to be under the microscope as their new ground comes to life. There has to be a change after Hillsborough, and the Valley is leading the way. Graham Miller, Thames News.